I am a temple who walks the earth. My womb is fertile for giving birth. I am a woman planted in truth. I grow my branches from sacred roots. You are the form of who you want to be. So come untethered, your soul is free. We're here to heal, we're here to thrive. We are a dream who's come alive. We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination for God's sake. A revelation for God's sake. An evolution for God's sake. An inspiration for God's sake. 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 For God's sake.
And so it is. Hello, Essence. This is Jody England, and you are listening to Wild Soul Medicine Radio. So last week we had quite a session together. I came last week really still in a fair amount of trigger around a woman who copied some of my work. And, you know, I titled it, She Stole My Work, even though I'm really clear and was really clear that I wasn't diminished by it in a certain way, and in another way, it was really pissing me off. And I was clear that something was out of integrity. So I came to the show trying to tend my trigger around it, and I actually re-listened to the show afterward because I was struggling for much of that show. I was really I was coughing and sneezing, and I had to keep putting myself on mute because so much was moving through my system. And so we ended up having a beautiful awareness that the coughing led us to. It was like, okay, so let's pause and see what's out of alignment. What am I doing or saying that's not what I should be doing or saying? And of course, that's what I was talking about, and that was happening to me live. So you got to be right with it. And as we, felt into it, it opened this clearing for our collective, this calling forth that it's time for us to begin holding our own integrity, not allowing the patriarchy to do it for us, or the religious structures to do it for us, or each other to do it for us, but really, coming out of hiding and standing fully in our own truth and essence. And so that was a beautiful awareness. And on the other side of that, I continued to do my own work, and it unfolded into really an epic clearing right after that, where I was able to retrieve a past life that had been kind of fluttering around the edges, and had a huge karmic cycle end with that. And then had a clearing a couple days later with my angel healers, and opened up my throat chakra. And and as I mentioned in my email, mind-blowing sex following that, which was a whole other thing. And that's also related to your throat chakra. So anyway, so much has been moving through me personally around this. And as with all triggers, they are always portals for clearing. I don't just say that as a way to sunshine up, like we should smile through our, difficult places, but truly our triggers are our portals for breakthroughs. And I take that seriously. So I don't get triggered like that very often anymore. And when I do, I really use it. So that's what happened with me personally. And we'll see how it flows. I may go ahead and share some of that with you today. And I have something beautiful, right? Something else beautiful that happened. So I was doing all of that work. And interestingly, the waves continued to roll through the collective as well. So I received a lot of communication. Probably, I think we had more live listens than we've ever had to that show. We had more listens on the first email than we ever, like by far. We definitely had more communication about that email than we've ever had. So many beautiful emails, of women who just reached out to say, I'm sorry this happened to you and I love you. And other ones that were, wanting the head of this woman, and, others who were, giving the kind of typical response of like, you're so unique and original, no one can copy you. And then interestingly, there were even some really brave women who reached out to say, were you talking about me? Right? Were you talking about me? If I've been copying your work, I don't think I have, but if I have, I'm sorry, and just let me know and I'll fix it. Right? Which takes a hell of a lot of courage. And also, I think those brave women spoke for many other women that were like, oh my gosh, I don't know, because isn't it interesting when we don't even know when we're in integrity, right? We don't know ourselves enough, and we don't know our work enough to be able to claim for ourselves if we're in integrity. So anyway, all that was happening. And then in the sisterhood that I was trying to consult last week before the show, there's a beautiful friend. Her name is Lisa Fabrega, and she's very similar to me in the work that she does. She's a seer. She coaches high-level evolutionaries. She's a truth teller. We met last year. We were on a panel for a sisterhood conference, and immediately, like I hadn't heard of her before, but immediately upon meeting her, it was like, oh yes, she is one of me, and I am one of her. And it feels so good when you come across that, when you're, kind of a unique being, and then there's somebody who's really like you. That feels good. It feels good in my system. So anyway, long story short, we had been supporting each other through this, and she had been supporting it as I was going through it. And then she started to have, she came forward with, actually, I have a nuance of something like that. And I'm going to let her tell her story. But she and I were trying to connect one-on-one to say, okay, we need a call around this. Let's do some seeing into what else is here in this dynamic? What is wanting to be uncovered here for our own clarity always? And then I wonder what would be out there for the collective on the other side of it. So we're trying to do this privately, and it's literally like an hour and a half before the show this morning. And I thought, oh my gosh, why didn't I just have Lisa come on the radio show? Because, we're going to continue this discussion of integrity. And a lot of what was in that past life clearing for me was the danger of being the only integrity holder. And there's a way that if it's my radio show and I'm doing it here by myself, that even with the best intentions, it could slide into something that actually feeds my ego. That would be the shadow, right? And so knowing that, this is part of like knowing when you need a wisdom panel and knowing when you need outside support. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll just reach out to her totally last minute with no preparation and see if she's up for it. And I did. And she said, that sounds like a blast. I'm at the store. I'll be home in 20 minutes. I mean, right? Yes. So my dear friend, Lisa Fabrega, is here with us. And as I've mentioned, she is a truth-telling coach, a writer, an intuitive seer, and she devotes her life to helping visionaries, entrepreneurs, creatives, and change makers get into and stay in alignment with their soul's purpose so that they can take powerful soul-aligned action in their lives and call in true prosperity. And as you know, I seldom actually read someone's bio. I particularly read hers because you can hear how similar it is to what I do and what I stand for and what I say. And also it has her own particular energetic behind it. She had no time to prepare it. She didn't scrub it up for the show. This is just what she has around, right? So I invite you, as we call Lisa to sit with us here by the fire, to really just kind of feel those similarities and nuances of two sisters who have essences that really can play and dance in many of the same realms and also are wholly their own, right? And so with that, I welcome Lisa.
Hi, Jody. Hi, everybody.
Hi. How are you, darling?
I'm good. I'm so happy to be having this discussion with you. It's perfect.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it so beautiful how it comes together when you don't really need a plan, when you just navigate by energy? It's like, okay, put me in, coach. I'm up.
Exactly.
Yes. Beautiful. Well, so let's just jump right in. I would love to have you share the experience that you were having that sort of led us into this discussion, and then we'll see where we flow from there.
Yes. Okay. So, this is not, I heard you mention this, that this is not the first time that this has happened to you. And it's certainly not the first time it's happened to me. It's been happening to me a lot because I've been running my business for 5 years. But this particular incident, the latest one, is one that I've been observing kind of quietly over the last, I would say, year. Because when these things come up, the first thing I do is I ask myself, like, okay, well, what's in this for you? This person may not be totally copying you. Maybe you're just being super egotistical and think everybody's trying to copy you. And so I really try to observe it before I speak up and talk about it. And in this case, it's a person who is kind of a colleague and somebody who I've connected with before. And I've been noticing and just observing a lot of her marketing and her advertising starting to look a lot like mine. And it's been difficult for me to sort of find pinpoint why there's something about it that feels kind of off. But then I started noticing that in the last couple of months, I'll post something. And, obviously we're all kind of like you just said, our work is so similar, we're helping people do similar things. And we're all tapping into a collective consciousness. And so there's going to be similar words that we all use, and there's going to be similar concepts that we're all talking about. So it kind of makes everything a little bit murky. And but I did notice that what's unique is the way that we express it, right? So like you said, there's a specific energy in my bio that's related to me versus how you would write your bio. And I started noticing that every time I would post something, I would, I expressed uniquely. I expressed myself, and I would do a post about a very particular idea, and it was through a lensing that was very particularly my own. And suddenly, a few days later, or maybe a week later, the same exact type of idea articulation would appear in one of her posts, but it had been written in her words. And it just started, the first couple times it happened, I was like, well, a lot of people follow me, a lot of people read me. Maybe she's just inspired by the thought. It is an interesting idea. Maybe she was inspired by it and wanted to kind of process it through her body and see what it felt like. But then I just started noticing it happening repeatedly, over and over and over and over again. And then I've been playing a lot with Facebook ads in the past year and a half. And then I noticed one day a Facebook ad of hers, which was eerily similar to one of my Facebook ads, and using languaging that was very, very similar, and in some cases, actual word for word phrase that I had used in my marketing on my Facebook ads. And so I noticed myself yesterday, the same thing happened. It almost felt like she was taking on a persona that she perceives I have, and then trying to present herself as that. And it was just weird. And the only feeling I got was that I kept emptying and emptying and emptying and moving beyond all the ego chatter and the scarcity chatter and all that stuff, moving through all that crap. And then when I got to the bottom, it still feels, I have this feeling of almost being siphoned off of, is the only way I can describe. And I remember this beautiful post that I read by Sarah Beek. I think it was last year. It was just on her Facebook page, and I came across it. And she talked about one of her mentors actually stealing her work and presenting it as his own, and how she confronted him about it. But the night before she confronted him about it, she said that she kept waking up, and her boyfriend told her the next morning that in her sleep, she kept saying, "I feel so violated. I feel so violated." And she spoke to that about how, yes, obviously we stand as lighthouses for our community, and obviously they reflect things back to us. We're here to, we do, if we're speaking to groups of people, some people will be inspired because they see a reflection in themselves. Like we are reflections of each other. Maybe we help awaken parts of people that they've maybe kept dormant. And so, yes, in one sense, imitation is the best form of flattery, as people say. In another sense, we're all tapping into a collective consciousness. So we don't really own a lot of the general archetypes of these ideas, but there is still something there that doesn't feel right. And I feel like she spoke to it so clearly in that Facebook post that she did, which is like, it does feel like a violation because, the unique expression of our souls has come through a lot of living and a lot of personal experience and a lot of soul searching and hard work. And there's something about it that when somebody sort of takes on your unique expression, there's something about it that feels wrong. And so, I could keep talking about this, and I'm sure we'll explore it further, but that's basically what happened to me. And I was putting it out there to my community to see, like, let's have a discussion about this, about how to approach this, because it is a little bit of an awkward situation for me because it is somebody that I actually know and have a good relationship with. Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of like, oh, now I've got to be like, I kind of feel like you're copying me, and let's have a conversation about this. Right. And it's always kind of an awkward conversation, and it's not all the stuff is word for word plagiarizing, so it's not so easy to pinpoint.
Yep.
So yeah, that's basically what's happening, and this happens to me all the time. I just have to say.
I know. And I mentioned last week, I've been on the other side of that. When I first started my business and I didn't have money to invest in classes, I had some people I followed and I would watch their whole launch sequence, and then I would take email by email and see like where are they leveraging and what's the pain point and when are they closing, and then I would put my own words in, but modeling their gig, and I think sometimes that's probably okay, and also I think we're being called to something deeper here, and I loved as you were speaking, Lisa, because I could feel, I agree with that feeling of the siphoning off and the violation. That was definitely the first reaction I had when I saw it. It felt like, it felt like somebody wearing my underwear out in public, or something really weird like that. And it's slippery because as you start to, because my ego's been doing the same thing yours has, even since the show. Like, oh, well, was it even a big deal? It was like one post and one title of a class that probably nobody's going to sign up for. And I made it a big deal, and what I just keep going back to is it's a big deal because there's something out of integrity. And this is the inquiry, right? Is what is out of integrity? Is it us or is it them? Or some dance between those two. And I think that's why I love having this conversation with you, Lisa, because we do take integrity so seriously and we are always tending it. And that's also why this is our conversation to lead at the moment, because we're really deepening into what does integrity mean? And I can feel all that shadowy underlayer of like victim perpetrator. So there's a part of me that shies away from the wanting to say I've been violated, because then it makes her the perpetrator and then we're burning someone at the stake again, right? And at the same time, it's like there is that sense of the siphoning. And so one of the women in the tribe had posted this article, which I just started to skim, but it was about integrity. And, the definition of integrity is being whole and undivided. Right? And so if you start to think about that in terms of, so for you as the originator of an idea or a concept or even a sequence, there is an energetic to that whole process. And it does actually run through your system and through your, like the fingerprints of your essence are all in it and through it, right? And then when you put it out there and someone takes their fingerprints and lifts, a portion of it off and makes it something else, like energetically, it does look to me like there's a gap then in what used to be whole and complete for you. So it is not in integrity now because someone has come and taken a piece of it, right? And then when I look at, well, what happens with her? Well, she's also not in integrity. She wasn't in the beginning, and taking that actually made her even less in integrity, because there's no way she can be whole and complete while she's taking, somebody else's stuff. And yet it feels like there's a deeper piece to all of that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes. I completely agree. I think the overwhelming sense I have with this situation, when this used to happen to me maybe like 2 years ago, it used to really trigger me. It really triggered me, and I used to get so upset about it. And now, since about 2 years ago, I did some really deep work with our mutual friend Kalila Dowdy, and we did some work on the shadow of competition and comparison. And ever since we did that really deep archetypal work with those two shadows, it hasn't really bothered me too much when I do see it now, because one of the things that I think is, well, there's a million ideas where my ideas come from, and I'm a perpetual idea machine. So it's a given that when I'm putting myself out there to so many people all the time, that some things are just going to be used. And I don't want to own everything in that sort of possessive, scarcity-based way. And so it hasn't usually bothered me, but I do think still what the overwhelming feeling that I get is what you were just alluding to, which is that I know this woman and I think she's amazing. And there's a kind of sadness in me where I say, why are you doing this? You have such great ideas. You're so brilliant. And the work you do is incredible. And I don't understand, why you have to look to me to figure out how you want to structure your marketing and market things. Copy the structure, and then fill in your own words. And then the deeper thing that I've been thinking about a lot with this is there's almost a sad feeling in me beyond my ego about, like what you were saying with integrity, which is the state of being whole, right? And so when we're coming from our wholeness and we believe that we're whole, that which is going to come from us is going to be really unique to our own being. And that's, in a way, how we honor our wholeness, is by allowing that to spring forth. And when we take on, like you said, other people's underwear, or, put on other people's voices and personas because we think that's what's going to make us more money, or, whatever it is the shadow that she or anybody else doing this has, and, including myself, because I used to do things like this in the beginning of my business too. When you do that, you're just completely reaffirming the illusion of your brokenness, which is the patriarchal illusion. And that makes me sad because you're not broken. Because if you believe you're broken, then you believe that your soul voice has no place, and anything that it says is not going to be reliable or be able to bring you the prosperity that you're desiring, or whatever it is that you desire. But if you're coming from a place of seeing yourself as whole, then you're honoring that voice, and your expression is unique. And then there's a whole issue here around self-worth, I feel, that we could explore too, is why is it that we feel sometimes that our words are not worthy of being spoken, and instead we have to kind of cloak them with the words and experiences of others. So that's a big thing that's come up for me beyond my own little ego, like, this feels really crappy. I don't like it.
Yes.
So yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. I want to add one piece, and then I feel like let's drop in and read some energy. Yeah. So the other piece that's been coming forward on the heels of this for me is around this idea of ownership. And for a couple years, I've been getting nudges from the universe that I need to put some kind of arms around my work, right? I hate that. I hate rules. I hate ownership. I hate my old energy mentor, when I was going to go to work for him, I literally signed like a 15-page contract about what was his and how it was his and what would happen to me if I used anything that was his. And it was like, seriously, I had such a distaste for all of it. And so I've really been committed to not doing that in my work. So I don't trademark anything, and I barely copyright anything. And, I just I teach my stuff, and I just feel like, well, it's really unique, and it's not only totally mine, and it's in the field, and, blah, 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 all of the reasons. So what's been happening recently is more calls for refinement around that position, because as the work is growing and as more people are coming through, and then are desiring to use what they've learned in their classes. They're asking me, please delineate how you would like me to use this or not use this. And it forces me into this inquiry around what is the point? Like, what is the point of owning it or not owning it? Why do I need my arms around it anyway? Because the conception I had of it was I'm putting my arms around it because there's a stinginess in me and I'm afraid that somebody will take what I've got, and I really eschew that whole paradigm. And that was how I was on the other side of it, with my mentor. So what I've started to look at and realize more recently is it's actually the arms around it are for them as much as me. Right? So it's like if we don't ever put our arms around it, if we become the siphonable energy, right, then actually we become like the mothership of supporting the lack of integrity of all of the women who would hook themselves up to it. Do you know?
Yes.
And so it feels like that's why it doesn't sit in my system to just say, that's cool. That's cool. I did it when I was you and, you'll grow out of it and whatever. But it's like, I can't actually stand for that for a minute because I'm not willing to collude in your lack of being an essence. And I wish someone had done that for me. I wish someone had said to me when I was copying those launch sequences, honey, let's just get you in touch with who you are, right? Where is your voice? Let's hear it. Let's be with it, right? I wish I heard this conversation 10 years ago when I was doing all of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have to say I resonate so much with everything you're saying. And, I went from a place of putting TMs and copyright symbols on everything, because I was in a total trigger mode, maybe two and a half years ago. And now I still do put TMs and copyright symbols on things, but it's coming from a completely different energetic container when I do it. And it's kind of like, when children have no rules or boundaries, they're actually kind of miserable. Like they want some sort of boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
They want some sort of guidance because when we're stepping into our wholeness, we are trying to figure out what's in integrity for us and not, right? And so sometimes we'll make mistakes and do something out of integrity. And like you said, it's really important to have people who are willing to say, hey, like you said, what's really true for you? How do you want to say this? How do you want to do this instead of copying somebody else's? And I do think that it's our responsibility, if we're going to be in a place of leadership, which we are, to set the proper container for our community by letting them know, kind of like, when kids don't have any boundaries or rules, they get really miserable. It creates a feeling of safety, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I do now at the beginning of a lot of my programs where I do group coaching is the first call when we all get on, I will say, listen, this is the expectation of the container of this group, and I'll delineate it very clearly. And I will say, if you are not all in for this, then you are free to leave right now. If you're all in, say all in out loud. And that way, the commitment is being spoken into the air. And the first time I did this, I was terrified because I thought people were going to be like, oh, she's such a bitch, I'm leaving, whatever. All those fears we have when we set open-hearted boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
And the complete opposite reaction has happened. Every time I do it, I get emails saying, thank you so much. I just feel so much more relaxed now knowing what is okay and not okay in this container. And it really caused me to reflect upon myself and see where I'm being wobbly or where I'm not in integrity. So I agree. I really feel like you're saying, if we're putting ourselves in the position of allowing ourselves to be siphoned off of, because we're not setting those boundaries, through sometimes requiring signed agreements and requiring, putting symbols on things. I do think that, we have to then take personal responsibility for that. I do think it's a little tricky though, because I don't know how to handle this particular situation, because I can't put a copyright symbol on the way my brain structures marketing ideas. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So that's the murky water. And when you're talking about templates, I know, I'm kind of a nerd about Facebook advertising and marketing. So I kind of dip into that world, but then I try to add my own soulful spin to it. And, there's a very big name in that field that I really love a lot of the email templates that he sends out. And he actually gives them to you and he sells them to you. And he says, if you want to plug and play, you can totally plug and play. So to me, that's different, right, than going in and like copying somebody's entire email sequence. I've even had people ask me, I had a client email me last week saying, I really loved the structure of your old mastermind program that you no longer run. Do you mind if I use it as guidance for mine? And I was like, totally, go ahead. But it's, she asked, right? She didn't kind of do it behind my back. So I don't know. I'm just inserting the things that are coming to my heart and my mind as we explore this together.
Yeah. Yes. No, I love all of that. And I think the same thing, it's interesting because that was some strategy that had been brought forward to me when I was in my inquiry around it. Like, well, if you're getting copied, maybe it's time to license and maybe you just need to train some people on exactly your process. And, that way there's more of an exchange happening rather than a siphoning, so it is a way to shift that energetic. And then there's also, there's something else, there's something else that's really tricky and shadowy. Cause even as we're talking, I can feel, yes. So let's just say this. Yes. Lisa and I both still have shit around people taking stuff from us being in our own essence, what is ours, what is not, how we be in integrity. We could each do coaching sessions on that with each other live for the next 20 years, right?
Exactly.
So that's a given. And because what I can feel is I can feel my listeners perched on the edge of their seats waiting for the arbiter, right? And so what is the way we do this, where we stay in integrity? And that's the piece that has me concerned, and that's where I feel like, Lisa, I'd love for us to drop in and see energetically, is there some way to unravel this or begin to unravel it in the collective or within each woman who's listening so that it's not up to you and I to be holding it or be the police women of it, with our little marks or our big licensing programs or whatever, Yeah. So, yeah, let's just drop in and see. Let's see what's possible.
Well, I have stuff coming up already.
Yeah, go ahead.
It comes back to this discussion about wholeness.
Mm-hmm.
The words that come up for me are wholeness, competition, and comparison.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if we shine a lens on that, that becomes the arbiter in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also connected to doing the work, really honoring your soul's expression, which we could call integrity, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes to all of that. And I would add the words safety and security. Because that feels like it literally is at the root. I see there's a lack of grounding in, no, I don't know who I am. And so, so it's like there's this flailing and then it doesn't feel safe to be who we are and we don't know who we are. So then we're looking to someone who seems like she knows who she is. And the siphoning is like, maybe I can get there through her, Right.
Yes. It's not safe to, yeah, totally. I so feel that it's not safe to fully be me and express as I express.
Yes. Yeah, totally. And this is subconscious, right? So I don't know that everybody's walking around feeling like they're in terror, but your system is doing that. If you're in that space of, I don't know, either, I don't know who I am, so I'm going to take this, or wait, was I the one who took your stuff, right? Or any version in between there. I think this is the call for tending, that it's like we have to collectively all begin to unplug from the density of the field, right? Of, it kind of looks like, this is not the right analogy, but it's like rats on a sinking ship, everybody trying to grab on. And it's not because we're not nice or we're not good-hearted. It's just because there's this old patterning underneath. Yeah?
Yes. Yes, that feels very, very resonant for me.
Yeah, for me too. So, so you want to play with, do you want to lead an exercise to clear this? You can, or I can, but I'll just give you the invitation since you're visiting.
Yeah, can I have a few seconds to drop in?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Let's see. Okay, I'd love to lead us through a meditation. So let's do it.
Beautiful.
And thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to be holding the bigger space and working the energetics from the outside and the bottom.
Thank you. Okay. So let's just all close our eyes and take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through the nose, out through the mouth. One more time, in through the nose. And out through the mouth. And as you're continuing to breathe in through your nose, out through the mouth, imagining that next time on the inhale, you're receiving the light from all of your benefactors, living or alive. Living or dead. All of those who are here to support you and guide you on this journey of your lifetime in the present moment. And as you're inhaling the light of their love and their support, and it's filling your entire body. And as you exhale, you're exhaling any leftover self-doubt, fear, anxiety, tightness, contraction through the soles of your feet and into the earth. The earth can hold it. You're inhaling that white light of love from your benefactors. And exhaling any contraction through the soles of your feet. And continuing to breathe in this way. And as we're continuing to breathe, let's all imagine that we are now standing in a beautiful open field. And it's just the perfect day. Just the temperature you love. Blue sky, and there's beautiful green grass underneath your bare feet. And you begin to feel the grass under your feet and walk around on it and explore this field, this space that feels so good to be in. And as you're exploring this space, you notice that on the other side of this field is a little hill. And in this hill, on the side of this hill, is a white door. And you begin to walk towards it, to check it out. And you're getting closer and closer to this white door on this peculiar little hill. And finally, you're right in front of it, and you put your hands on the big brass knob of this door, and you turn it. And on the other side of this door is a large earthen tunnel, and it's safe. It feels very safe to be in here as you step in. Very held, almost womb-like. And there's plenty of space to move around. It's quite large. And the tunnel slopes downwards as if it leads to the center of the earth, and you begin to walk through this tunnel, observing your feet, stepping one foot in front of the other, and the other, and the other. continuing down this large earthen tunnel, smelling the earth in the air, a slight dampness. Continuing to observe your feet, stepping further and further into the tunnel, one foot in front of the other, and in front of the other, and in front of the other. Continuing down this tunnel, and you begin to see a little pinprick of light ahead. And as you're continuing to wander down this tunnel, further down into the earth, the light becomes brighter and brighter, larger and larger, until you are now at the end of this tunnel. And you notice the light was actually coming from a large underground room in which this tunnel empties. And you are now standing in this room, which is brightly lit. And it's decorated just in your style, as if this room was made for you. Just take a moment to notice what this room looks like and what's in it. And now you look towards the center of the room. And in the center of the room, there's a spotlight. And in the spotlight is standing your higher self, your inner goddess, whatever you want to call it. She or he is there. And she has this look on her face, like she really, really wants to share something with you, and she's been waiting for you. And so you walk up to her. She leans into your ear and she whispers that thing that she's been wanting to say. She really wants you to know. And then she takes your hand and she walks you over to a corner of this beautiful room. And in this corner is a large pedestal stand, very ornate, and on top of it is a large book. She opens the book to a blank page. And as she points to the book, to this blank page, she's here to show you your unique expression, your unique essence as a being. Don't think about this. Allow whatever wants to arise on that blank page to begin to appear. Don't question it. Don't think about it. Just let it rise and see what she's showing you. And maybe at one point the page fills up and she flips it and a whole other page begins to fill up with images and symbols and words. And remember to keep breathing deeply here and surrendering to the vision that she's trying to show you. And if you have questions, ask her. Be open to receive her answers, even if they don't look like what your mind thinks they should look like. So now it's time for you to go and leave this room once again. She walks with you hand in hand to the entrance of the tunnel from which you came, And now she enters the tunnel with you as you begin to ascend through the earthen tunnel in which you first undertook this journey. And now there are 2 sets of feet, stepping 1 foot in front of the other, and 1 foot in front of the other, and the other, and the other. Swiftly moving hand in hand with your higher self through this tunnel, ascending, ascending. Seeing light up ahead again, now moving upwards through this tunnel, through the damp earthen air. And as you reach the end of this tunnel, the light is streaming in from the field, the door that you left slightly ajar. And as you step through the door and back out into the field, you are now facing your higher self, both facing each other in this beautiful field in which you started. And she steps inside of you almost as if she were stepping into some sort of a zippered suit. So fingers go in finger slots, toes go in toe slots, heart connects with heart, head connects with head. And you are now fully integrated into one being with this knowing of what your unique essence and your unique expression is. And there's no figuring out that you have to do. The knowing is inside of you, and all you have to do now is tap into these symbols, these images, and these words that she showed you. This is you in your fully integrated whole state. And notice if anything in the field around you looks different now, or if it looks the same. There's no right or wrong answers here. You can slowly now begin to bring your awareness, using my voice if you need to, bring your awareness back into the present moment, leaving this image, this beautiful world which we just visited behind, slowly fading into the present moment. Continuing to breathe, wiggling your toes and your feet and moving your bottom in your seat. Now slowly beginning to open your eyes.
So beautiful. Thank you for that, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for doing all that work around the container.
Thank you. Yeah, it was great to have a chance to hold in that way. Yeah, I think that was the perfect exercise. Actually, when I met with my own higher self, I never know what to expect, right? And she said, "Thank you for bringing them here." It was so good. It was so good. And also perfect because the Soulful Money Medicine class is right after the radio show, and today is our last class, and never ceases to amaze me the similarities. I always think it's 2 separate topics, and then the same theme ends up running through both of them, even though I don't plan it, of course. And so this is a refinement. This is what we're going to be talking about on Soulful Money Medicine today, is the distinction between me and essence, right? And so the highest vision of my work is championing the return of essence. And essence is who we are, the individual fingerprint, of who we are without the blocks and stories and patterns and egoic functions underneath. And I think there's a way that, we get hung up on feeling that essence is the thing we have to be. And so, if we're not all that yet, then we have to go siphon, or we have to be in paralysis because we can't offer something that's not perfect or not complete in some way, And what I've become conscious to is that belief in itself makes us incomplete, right? And so I started to play with this concept of me being ego plus essence. And, And I feel like that's what you and I do a really good job of, is bringing the me. We're really aware of our essence, and we've done a ton of work to excavate and bring her forward. And we're really aware of all of the me that's still hanging out, right? So it's like there's this complete package of imperfection and blocks and shadow and ego and story, and also essence kind of shining through the cracks here and there. And I feel like it's the embracing of that, the embracing of the me, ego plus essence, which allows you to put stuff out in the world that's authentic with where you are right now. It won't be the highest iteration. Lisa and I will look back in 5 years. We'll look back in 5 months on the stuff we were offering now and be like, that is so embarrassing. I can't believe I was offering that. Right? Sometimes 5 hours from now. But it still feels whole and complete. There's a confidence in the perfection of, not perfect as in couldn't be better, but perfect as in whole and complete, as in it's an integrous system. It is what is. And so I feel like that's the arrival place. That's the invitation that was so beautifully led in that energetic exercise, is meeting your higher self, and you are her and you are you. You're both.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that, what's coming up for me as I hear you speaking so beautifully about this is that it just flew out of my mind.
Well, let's pause because it feels important.
I'll go into it from the side, which is that it just came back to me. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going to mess up. We're going to accidentally copy somebody sometimes. It happens. We read a lot of things. We're exposed to a lot of things. We're tapped into a collective consciousness. And sometimes we'll go, oh, crap. I just saw how this totally just influenced this, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that instead of beating ourselves up about it, I think awareness is the answer. It's sort of the aligner, and you were saying, like, we need like an arbiter. I feel like awareness is a wonderful arbiter. To be aware of ourselves. A question that was taught to me by my friend Elaine is, who is speaking through me? So whenever I go to post something or write something or say something or teach something, the first question before I even open my mouth or start typing is, who is speaking through me?
That's
because
good. That's good.
Yeah, it's a really good question. When Elaine taught me that, I was like, oh God, that's such a good question. Because it keeps me in integrity. It keeps me, okay, is this somebody else's voice? What, is this my ego, like my pissed off ego? Like, let me get really clear about who's actually speaking right now. So that I'm just aware. Just having the awareness and asking yourself who's speaking through me. And I love what you said about the fact that we are human and we are, this higher self at the same time. Because this is how we learn. We make mistakes. We get triggered. Like, I loved what you said about triggers being portals. It's okay. It's okay to do it, and let's stay aware.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And I am just envisioning, in some ways a more loving conversation, and in some ways a more direct conversation. And, I'm kind of like envisioning, this is an invitation into your self-ogram, which is, I see the post or I see the offering and it really reminds me of me, or it really feels like it's not all you. And the invitation is for you to go in and just see where you can bring more of you in, rather than shaming and finger pointing. And even there's a way that we can all use whatever side of the fence you're on in this discussion. If you're the one who gets copied, if you're the one who's afraid to copy, if you're the one who's not in the game period because you don't want to be either of those, right? Like, wherever you are, that is your entry point. That is the portal into, okay, so what is the story that I'm using to not actually be who I am? right?
Right. And, I think there's such a temptation, right? When we are kind of we're afraid to kind of sink in, or we're not viewing ourselves as whole. It's such a temptation to just want to get a quick answer and like fit ourselves into that so that it's quote unquote easy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That just came up for me as you were saying that. And it's just doing the work of not taking the easy pill, right? And not taking and it's not easy to do what you said, which is to directly say, hey, this is very similar to my last post. And I want to invite you to bring more of you into it. In fact, Jody, I have several very close colleague friends, and we have this agreement with each other. And I've had many conversations with them where all of a sudden I'll see a post and I'm like, you just completely used the same phrase I just used. But there's that trust where I'll say, okay, I'm feeling a little bit triggered. Can we have a conversation around this? And we do, and it's beautiful. And it feels a little scary and a little uncomfortable. And then she'll share with me where she was coming from. Recently I had a very close friend of mine who's also a colleague who was doing some rebranding, and she was using she was using my tagline without realizing it, and all this new tagline that I'm coming up with, because we've been having discussions with each other, helping each other out, work out the branding and keep each other in alignment with our own selves. And so naturally the influence happens, and sometimes we're not aware of it. And I had a beautiful discussion with her, and I said exactly what you said. I said, this is not coming from me wanting to own this terminology, but it just doesn't feel like you. Mm-hmm. What is you? What is you? Because to me, the essence of you doesn't feel like this. And we ended up having this like hour-long conversation over text and phone. And she ended up finding a perfect expression for what she wanted to say. And it was completely different than my own. But it's that willingness to have those difficult conversations, like you said, and be brave. And, even the people who are emailing you saying, was that me? And, last night I had somebody who I think is also in your audience email me and ask me about some terminology I've used and whether I got that from somewhere else. And I thought that was incredibly brave of her to email me about that. It was the terminology came from me, but just being brave and holding that space for each other, the space of wholeness for each other, and keeping ourselves accountable. I hate using that word, but I think you know what I mean. Keeping ourselves accountable to that wholeness.
Yes.
As a sisterhood, as a collective.
Yes, I love that. And I think, we are really all just learning. We're learning. That's why we overreact, on both sides of the coin, because we're stepping out of the sinking ship, every rat on ship sort of mentality. And we just did some major density clearing in the field right there, with everybody picking up their own meanness, and actually letting go of a lot of the threads that were keeping it, like there really was no room to breathe in that tiny container. And so what I see is, now we're kind of free in this wobbly place to start to try on and say, here's what I see, or here's what I'd like to receive feedback on, or, also knowing yourself. So I know myself as an assimilator, and I know that there's actually a woman in our tribe who knows herself that way as well. And she's also a psychic. And we had a conversation about her coming into magic school, and she felt it and I felt it. And she said, I feel like I could learn there. And if I come there, I'll copy your stuff and use it as mine. And I said, I feel that too. And so there's like a note, like I know that Lisa and I are close, so I don't actually read Lisa's posts most of the time. My friend Sway, same, like we're very similar. So I don't look at anything she creates because, there is likely overlap because we get the same memos from the universe, but I don't want to see what she's putting out because then it becomes harder for me to be myself because I'm trying to not be overlapping her. You know what I mean? So there's every little nuance of how this will play out. And it's not about a game of perfect. One of my favorite things that I've really been learning about Essence recently is that Essence is revealing herself to us as much as she is being revealed to others. And so, often when you're truly in Essence and you're putting something out, you won't know. You won't know if it is or isn't, but we show ourselves to know ourselves. We show ourselves to know ourselves. So it's often then in the contrast where we put something out and then we can later reflect and see, actually, that wasn't really me, or that was close, but it was a little off the mark in this way, or that was my essence in the moment and now it isn't, you know? So it does take some gentle and firm holding of our own boundaries and, each other's when we're called in that direction.
Yes, absolutely. I also can be an assimilator, and so I also follow very few people for that specific reason. I don't hardly read anybody's posts. The handful of people that I do follow and subscribe to, it's because I can feel that I am distinct enough from them, or don't feel like that's the danger that I would have with them. So for sure, I relate with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
Also, it's like eventually it becomes a lot of noise, right? And if we're really down here to distill to our, as you would say, our essence, right? If we're here to distill down to what is, as I would say it, or as many would say it, our soul voice, and what is that unique expression, then we kind of do need to go into silence, and we do need to tune out all the noise around us and take time to hear what the soul wants to say and how it wants to say it. And so, for me, many years ago, I just unsubscribed from so many things, and I'm very careful about the information that I take in because of, me being concerned that I might assimilate without realizing it, but also because I need the silence to hear myself speak.
Yes, me too. Such a beautiful invitation. We've say that on the show too. Exactly that really tending essence takes a lot of listening. A lot of listening.
Sometimes we just don't want to. We just want to have it figured out.
I know. Can I get an essence hearing aid, please? I am not hearing anything.
I love that.
Oh, Lisa, it's been such a joy to play with you. Thank you so much for being willing to have this really vital conversation.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been so fun.
So fun. And I'd like to just, as we leave, I just want to invite all of our hearts to open to the fact that you came to listen to this conversation, that you're willing to put yourself in the space of the fire of integrity, right? And to see if there's a way that as a collective, we can just love ourselves right where we are. We have been through a lot, sisters. We have been through a lot, and every coping mechanism that we have in place has been necessary and has served us. And so all we're doing is taking a look to see, does it still serve? I would say the reason this conversation is happening now is because it's becoming a little safer. It's becoming a little more mainstream. We don't have to hide as much as we have had to in the past. So it's just time. That's all. And from that space, we can love ourselves exactly as we are and exactly as we aren't, with so much compassion for these vulnerable, trepidatious steps that we'll be taking together side by side. All right, Lisa, until next time, and I'm sure there will be a next time. So much love to you and all of our listeners. Bye for now.
Bye.
We light a candle, our hearts awake. Illumination, for God's sake. A revelation, for God's sake. An inspiration, for God's sake. Illumination, for God's sake. For God's sake. For God's sake. For God.